It is my great pleasure to be here with everybody. Thank you, Ram, for the invitation. And thank you for creating this 1 month long, very exciting series of very, very diverse topics that I think are of importance that we in a coaching profession discuss very openly, and not necessarily having a strong position one way or another, but to be in a conversation with each other. So I was asked to speak about coaching role in societal progress. And I couldn't be more excited about it because it is something that is very, very close to me, to my heart, and to my value system. So although, yes, I am the CEO of the International Coach Federation, I am speaking to you today more as Magda Mook. Because, as I said, I am championing and spearheading some of these initiatives for the ICF, but this is something that I'm extremely passionate about as a person and as a coach. So again, for those of you who do not know ICF, International Coach Federation was created almost 25 years ago. We will be celebrating our 25th anniversary next year. And the organization has been created to give legitimacy to the coaching profession. Some would say that coaching profession has been known for years and years, centuries, really, while, in a more modern way, we are considering coaching being still somewhat new. What it means is that we're observing a lot of evolution of what's going on in the coaching world. I've been working with ICF for 14 years. And myself, I've seen a significant changes. For example, when I first started, the term internal coach pretty much did not exist. We were not talking about neuroscience underpinning the effectiveness and efficacy of coaching. We did not talk much about group or team coaching. The term systemic coaching was not very well known, let alone a conversation about coaching cultures and how creating coaching cultures may support organizations and individuals alike in achieving their highest potential. What we also observed over this period of time is that ICF as an organization grew very significantly from about 8,000 members 15 years ago to, 36,000 nowadays. And the sheer number is great by itself, but I think what's even more interesting is that we used to be predominantly North American organization, while now less than half of our membership resides in North America, between Canada and the United States. And we are growing very, very fast in other parts of the world. I just came back from Africa, where the board of directors held its face-to-face strategic planning meeting, and we already welcomed 7 or 8 chapters in Africa and Middle East, with Asia also growing very significantly. And the reason I'm giving you a little bit of that background and history is that the application of coaching also started shifting. When ICF was first started, coaching applied just to individuals. And for a reason, the term life coaching has been used because people were getting help with their life issues, with things that were important to them, which they wanted to accomplish, and they were seeking the relationship with a professional coach. Then we noticed that organizations and corporations started using coaching. In several parts of the world, coaching was considered, initially anyway, more as a remedial function. That meant that, should there be a problem, somebody would work with the coach to either improve performance or, frankly, to be coached out of the organization. Having said that, the corporations and organizations quickly realized that having coaches working with their leaders made a difference. And they started looking more into bigger systems within the organizations. Soon after the organizations and corporations started using coaching, governments started really taking a hold of this new methodology that seemingly was really working for the private sector. So Canadian government was actually one of the first, Australian, followed by the US federal government, employing coaches internally and externally to support the vast activities of those institutions and organizations. Alongside with that, we noticed that the awareness of coaching is growing. We've been conducting, we being ICF, we've been conducting global awareness studies conducted for us by PricewaterhouseCoopers. And first time when we actually did this study, we asked the question of, what do you know about coaching? Do you know what coaching is? Have you been a part of a coaching relationship? We had, frankly, really no idea what the answer is going to be. And to our delight, quite frankly, at that point, that was 7 years ago, the global awareness of coaching was at 51%. So 51% of individuals 25 years and older, randomly chosen by PwC as their panel survey recipients, responded that they actually did know what coaching was. Fairly nice percentage of people already were engaged in a coaching relationship, and out of those, over 85% said that they would repeat the coaching engagement if given an opportunity. We are repeating that study every 2 years, and last year we released the most recent data, and again, to our delight, we noticed that the awareness of coaching jumped from 51 to 66%. This is quite unparalleled. We ask PwC, they do awareness studies for many organizations and professions, and even they seem to be thinking that this is quite unusually quick increase in the global awareness. And what we, our working thesis was that this is because many organizations decided that just affording coaching to their top level leadership is not enough. Perhaps even a little arrogant to think that one person can single-handedly turn the entire tenor and the culture, management culture, leadership culture of the organization. So in partnership with Human Capital Institute, we are conducting a series of studies about coaching in organizations. Our first study, we just looked into what does it mean? What does it mean to have coaching culture in an organization? We later went into checking what do we know about creating internal coaching programs. The next step was, what does it mean to be a millennial coach or a coach for the millennial in organizational setting? And then very recently, last year, we looked into how coaching is supporting change management initiatives. But all in all, what we found out is that organizations with strong coaching cultures happen to have a much greater engagement of their employees, and they also realize greater financial results than organizations of the same size in similar type of industry. But again, you know, you might ask, how does it matter for coaching for societal progress? Well, it does, by at least two different ways. One is that there is some very interesting research on the so-called ripple effect of coaching. When an individual is subject to coaching and is in a coaching relationship, they do pick up some of the traits and skills of a coach. They start addressing their employees in a different way. Their leadership style, their management style is changing. The whole notion of leader and manager using coaching skills is very prevalent, and we know that this is the fastest growing segment, if you will, of the coaching spectrum nowadays. but also they do talk about coaching with people outside of their profession, outside of their organization. They bring that awareness of coaching to other populations, if you will. And what we also started noticing is that more and more of not-for-profit organizations start being interested in coaching. Because that overall awareness is growing significantly, then they started poking around a little bit and started realizing some of the not-for-profits, as you well know, are really, really large organizations and often very well funded. So for years now, ICF itself has been working with the several agencies of the United Nations organization, offering coaching to leaders and to people on front lines. We've been in an ongoing relationship with the UNICEF in particular, where we offered coaching to the network of new and emerging leaders within the UNICEF system. We are now coaching 35 country managers in Central and Southern Europe to increase their leadership capacity. And again, we started seeing a pick-up on coaching in not-for-profit organizations by many of our members and coaches within the greater system, if you will. And that also ties back to corporations, because corporations started realizing that having social responsibility arm or having social responsibility program benefited the organization quite significantly. And it was by engaging their employees and by building stronger loyalty between the employees and the organization. So I am not suggesting that corporate social responsibility programs necessarily focus on coaching. However, more and more of them utilize coaching as a support for their social responsibility activities. As we look into how coaching again is evolving, there is this very strong correlation with leadership development, coaching supporting leadership development. Nowadays, we know that not-for-profit organizations really need that strong leadership because that sector of the economy is growing and growing fast. Latest study by Gallup suggested that in North America, 11% of recent graduates or people who will be graduating within 1 year choose not-for-profit sector or charitable organization as their choice of line of work. That's a lot. 11% is a lot, and it's growing from year to year to year. We start hearing more about not-for-profit organizations taking very significant stands on societal issues and advocating strongly for certain solutions. Some of you may be aware of the ICF Foundation, and ICF Foundation's vision is to use coaching as the amplifying force or methodology for building leadership capacity within the organizations that are operating in a not-for-profit or NGO sphere. And you know, this is also something that we started being interested in. What do coaches say? We've been hearing a lot about pro bono initiatives, and but it's much more than just pro bono, right? So in 2016, we were conducting our global coaching study with PricewaterhouseCoopers. By the way, the new round of this survey is right now out there. So if you haven't utilized it yet, please go to www.coachingstudy2019.org. And I hope that you will help us gain even more insights about what's going on in the coaching profession and the coaching market. But back in 2016, we did ask the question of the 15,000 respondents to the survey, do you believe that coaching can support societal progress? Well, 89% came back with a strong yes. Several more percentage said to the large extent. So that means that coaches themselves, a very generous population, we know it, but coaches believe that not only coaching can help with societal progress, but that coaching is a must. And the look into societal progress is something that we cannot ignore. So, as I said, ICF members and ICF chapters have been involved in offering pro bono coaching to populations in need for many, many years. And there are some heartwarming stories about what these initiatives accomplished, from working with impoverished youth to working with the victims of violent conflicts, to empowering women to enter marketplace in countries where economic development opportunities for women and girls are little or are just budding right now, to working with the veterans returning from military life to civilian life. So there are many very very heartwarming stories, and you can read about it quite a bit at the ICF Foundation site. Every year we offer awards in what we call Gift of Coaching Award, and this is a recognition for the organizations, for the chapters that are working in that pro bono sector. ICF Foundation, couple 3 years ago, decided to create a very significant initiative. We call it Ignite. And we decided to partner or to align with United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. We asked our chapters which one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals they really resonate with, and they really want to align with. And what came back very strongly was education. So we decided to tie the Ignite initiative to education, and we invited our ICF chapters to work with organizations that are supporting the field of education, and we offer them coaching to, again, accelerate and amplify their leadership capacity to deliver to the populations that they serve. And I'm extremely proud to say that right now we have 70 Ignite initiatives going on around the globe. And I mean around the globe. Many of them are, actually we have one going in every continent that we have a pleasure of having ICF chapters. So with that also, you know, came a question. So as I said, societal progress is so much bigger than offering pro bono coaching. It is more of a systemic look into what coaching can do. If we think about the ICF vision, it is to coaching becoming integral part of a thriving society. And there are two key words in that statement: integral part and then thriving society. There are there could be many definitions of what it means to individuals and organizations. But one of the description could be that integral part of society means that coaching is available to anybody and everybody who would like to engage in coaching. That means that we still have a lot of work to do in educating the general population about coaching, and also just for people to realize that coaching is not just for C-suite, that coaching is not just for big business, but that coaching is truly impacting individuals and larger systems alike, and that coaching can and is applied in a societal context, if you will. So as we start talking about coaching in social progress, Oh, I'm sorry, I'll get back to thriving society. So what thriving society means? Again, the sustainable development goals of the UN touch upon all these big buckets of where we do have problems as a planet, where we do have problems as society, either with clean water, clean energy, education, women empowerment, whatever it might be, that are issues that need to be urgently, and I mean urgently, addressed. I think that this urgency is something that is awakening coaching as a profession to take a much stronger position into what coaches individually and coaching as a profession can and should be doing. So let's take it kind of one by one, because societal progress could mean so many different things to an individual coach, to the coaching profession, and conversely to ICF as an organization representing professional coaches. For individuals, as we already said, many started talking and are very generously offering their coaching services to not-for-profit organizations. And it may be for whatever reason is the most urgent for that organization. That could be leadership development, as we said, but it could be effectiveness of their working processes, communication, group work, whatever it might be. Having said that, more and more of coaches and individuals are started asking, I think, a very important question, and it is, what is my individual responsibility for societal issues and societal problems? There is already a standard in the ICF Code of Ethics that talks about impairment. And it does talk about the fact that if a coach observes an impairment in themselves, they are obligated to terminate the relationship with their client if they are not the best person to support that client. That self-awareness started reaching beyond that statement, I think, recently. And it is to almost a moral responsibility of a coach. I remember vividly long conversations with Sir John Whitmore, who many of you might know, the often called a father of modern coaching. And Sir John, in later years of his coaching practice, would refuse to work with certain clients because he said that their values did not align with his values. And then he was an extremely, extremely vocal proponent of work in clean energy. And he was also very vocal, saying that he considers it his responsibility to talk about clean energy with his clients. That was probably when he first started being very vocal about it, good 10 years ago. That created some stir because people were saying, well, how could you possibly do that? It needs to be a client agenda. And I think that already from then and more strongly nowadays, we start talking about big difference between, of course, adopting client's agenda, but also as coaches are very keen on growing their own self-awareness, is also to grow the awareness of a client. ICF has been recently working on the review of our Code of Ethics. We do it every 3 years. The new code will be released at the beginning of next year, so January 2020. And quite a lot of conversation happened around that awareness on the coach and the client side of what impact their work has on a broader system, on society, on the planet. In several parts of the world, we hear coaches becoming very engaged in fight for the climate, You know, we recently were talking about climate change. If you are attuned to that, you probably noticed that more and more we hear about climate crisis. We had this young woman from Sweden, Greta, addressing UN, talking about climate crisis and how little has been done systemically to address this this whole situation. And just from the position of ICF, we hear pockets of our coaches really getting together, creating groups, creating discussion groups, creating activity groups that offer coaching as a modality to the organizations that are working on climate change. Of course, coaches can involved individually in any work that is supporting societal goals as they choose. Again, more as individuals than as coaches. However, I get back to that building awareness with their clients. So more and more what we hear from the practice of coaching is that if a coach has a strong position on one or more societal issues, they may want to bring it to the attention of their client. They may say, well, what you're proposing is fantastic, and did you think about what impact this will have in longer term on the society as a whole? And this is anecdotal, but what we hear is that more clients than not would say, like, thank you for asking, I was wondering the same thing, while others was like, oh, this is a phenomenal question, I didn't think about it and I probably should. So is it influencing clients' agenda? I don't think so. I think it's just raising that awareness of the client that what they do does have an impact. We started hearing about large organizations, you know, Facebook, Google, you name them, that create this very strong corporate responsibility programs because they believe that mission-driven organizations are actually more successful long-term than those who are oriented on profit alone. And this is also true as we are observing the fairly significant change in the workforce that is coming to organizations and corporations. We know that by 2025, very soon, millennials would represent 75% of the global workforce. And millennials and the next generation, Generation Z, are really, really keen on having a voice in large solutions, having a voice in creating better future for themselves and for future generations. So again, coaching becoming that lever for addressing societal issues, or for, again, I repeat it again because I think it's very important, for bringing societal impacts into the awareness of the clients they are working with, is potentially having a significant impact on how solutions are being designed, how global awareness and global consciousness, if you will, for societal good is being raised also by the actions of the coaches and the actions of the coaches with the organizations they are working with. You know, there is a question that the ICF Foundation is posting in a lot of its work, and it is quite profound. It states, what is the greatest contribution that coaching can offer to humanity? Morel Foreman, the current president of the ICF Foundation, famously says, we don't need to look of what's possible, but we need to aim for what's needed. And typically the needed is greater than possible. So that's what we do as coaches, right? We just say there is no impossible. We can grow, we can reach greater potential, we can do more. And as I said, more and more coaches and coaching groups start being very interested in that support for societal progress through coaching. And then, you know, one may say, okay, so what else can be done? Many of you may know that the United Nations was in a session only last week, and they held a lot of very important conversations around the sustainable goals. And many organizations took it as an important time to state their stance on societal issues. Many very large corporations, most probably provocatively, Visa, the offerer of a credit card, came out with a strong social responsibility program. We are also working with many global development organizations. I mentioned UN, but we are working also with the World Bank. We are working with the International Monetary Fund. We are working with African Development Bank. And these are the organizations, European Union as well. And these are organizations that are pretty familiar with coaching. However, again, quite an interesting shift. Coaching has been offered to leaders within these organizations for years now. And some of them have very good tradition of utilizing coaching for internal leadership and team development. However, what we started seeing, and I am proud to say that also by doing of the ICF, is that coaching starts being added to the project plans and is offered to grantees of the funds of those organizations. In other words, coaching is being used to sustain the good work that the World Bank's, African Development Banks, or whoever else is doing on the ground. Again, so it's becoming parallel. Coaching is still available to the leaders within these organizations, but very importantly, coaching is being offered as a part of the funding mechanism to strengthen and to sustain the outcomes and the impacts of those funding grants. What we also start seeing that with the use of strong coaching cultures, which means that there is a support for coaching from a senior leadership, which means that individuals appreciate and value coaching. Another aspect of strong coaching culture is the fact that there is a budget line, dedicated budget line for coaching. It also means that people throughout the system have access to coaching. It's not just C-suite. It's offering coaching to high potentials. It's offering coaching to teams and groups. It's offering coaching as an onboarding mechanism. And again, the very important part that utilization of internal and external coaches, as well as leaders and managers using coaching skills, that these people are properly trained and prepared to offer their coaching services. So, excuse me, in these organizations with strong coaching cultures, greater attention to long-term impacts is becoming more and more prevalent. Many organizations, especially publicly traded organizations, tended to look just to the next quarter, just what are the results, what are the dividends being paid to the stakeholders. But we see a shift in stakeholders. Stakeholders do want to see longer-term impacts, and stakeholders also are quite vocal about societal progress. So we hear stories about stakeholders, shareholders insisting on some activities within the organizations that are either less negatively impacting the society or in turn very positively impacting the society. And coaching is being utilized a lot in support of those initiatives and this change in the mindset. So, you know, I think that vision of ICF, that coaching is becoming integral part of society, is becoming real because greater and greater populations are being exposed to coaching. ICF, again, very proudly recently entered into the relationship with the Special Olympics, and we are offering leadership coaching for just about every person that is a part of a Special Olympics, from the athletes to their parents to the leaders within the organization. I've been, ICF has been a very, very good spotter of trends in ICF, in coaching, and yet we've been somewhat passive reporter of these trends. I think nowadays, with such a strong support from our membership for societal progress and for coaching making a difference, we're gonna see more and more initiatives that will be pointing into use of coaching for social progress. Again, either at the individual level by the engagement of an individual coach, or by bringing that attention and awareness to the clients, organizational clients that coaches are working with. So, I will repeat that statement from the foundation. What is the greatest contribution that coaching can offer to humanity? I think, again, there are many different definitions for that, and somehow it does depend on the individual coach. But the very strong presence in reflection and self-awareness in core coaching competencies within the ICF, and then seeing that strong support for taking keen attention to the impacts of the work of the coach and the client on a greater system and greater society is something that we are really seeing strongly, and I think we're going to see only more and more of that. So I've been talking for 40 minutes. I'm going to stop here and see if perhaps there are any questions, or is there any specific aspect that you would like for me to further address?
Yeah, thanks, Magda. It's been fantastic. I think it's one of the rare occasions where we have you moving beyond demographics and in what countries ICF is doing and so on and so forth. It really, I heard you at the APAC conference and you started talking about some of the issues, systemic issues and areas that you are interested in, and this is really fantastic. There have been a few questions from Fiona, and Fiona is actually doing a session tomorrow on the colloquium. What I would do is let me promote Fiona to the panel, and she had asked about some questions on education and some of the other issues of that. So I hope she can come on the panel. Fiona, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your questions, please? Hello? Fiona, are you there? Yeah, one of the questions that Fiona had asked is, can we expect all coaches to work across these various ranges of personal and professional areas that you talked about, or should we be thinking about education and training for different sectors, perhaps building up capacities slowly? And then later there was something else that she had asked. So, and also that sounds like the breadth and depth of what coaches may be engaged would require a very adaptable person with a wide range of personal and professional capacities. If you have any answers to these.
Yes, thank you for the question. And this is not necessarily a question that can be answered with the black and white response. Back to data, when I mentioned the PricewaterhouseCoopers study from 2016, global coaching study, we know that the very, very vast percentage of the respondents to the survey, who by the way were coaches from ICF, and 38% of them were non-affiliated with ICF. So they strongly believe that coaching is making a difference and can make a difference for the societal progress. That indicates to me that there is a keen interest within the coaching community about doing that. Is that a mandate? I don't think so. I think that coaches will be working with the clients that they want to work with and on the issues that they're working on. There are some important values, at least for the ICF coaches, of respect, of collaboration, of excellence that do translate into no doing harm, right? So this new review of the code probably will bring that additional standard around being aware of the impact that the work of the coach and the client is having on the greater society. So, but this is not a dictate. This is more of a, you know, please just stop for a second, reflect and be aware of what your work is doing and can be doing in the long term. Does it require depth and capacity? Yes, no question about it. And yet, this is another thing that we know so well about coaches, is that they are lifelong learners. The commitment to personal and professional development is again reflected in our code of ethics. And even by the virtue, Magda, when she introduced me, she was talking about ICF being also responsible for coaching standards and coaching credentials. The very fact that we require additional education units as the requirement for renewal of the credential also points to the fact that this lifelong learning is a part of a constitution of the professional coach. And also we do, as an organization, really welcome pro bono activities being offered by our coaches. I think that the entire society is growing in awareness about the societal needs and some societal crises. And so I don't think that this is unusual that coaching would follow. And yet, because of the nature of our profession, I think that commitment to no doing harm and doing good is even greater, either by our own work or as a work with our coaching clients.
Thanks, Magda. There are a couple of questions from Sway Vanderholm. Why are initiatives and projects continuing to use pro bono rather than the paid hours definition? ICF has such a wonderfully wide definition of paid coaching, which when used allows coaches to work towards credentials to log these hours as paid hours.
Yes. Very good question, and I'll be very happy to address it. There are several reasons why people offer pro bono coaching. Some of them because this is their way of giving back. They are successful and they want to give back. Some is offered pro bono because the individuals or institutions that are receiving that gift may not be in a position to afford coaching, and yet they desperately can use the help. But very much in recognition of the fact that coaching is a profession and we need to value it for the profession. The initiatives of the ICF Foundation are offering pro bono. Having said that, it's a limited period of time. It is limited to 6 months engagement, and after that, there is an expectation that the organizations that are utilizing coaching in that pro bono way would be so enthused by the results they get with coaching that they would create a specific and unique budget line for coaching in their next budgets. That's precisely what the foundation wants to see happen, is raising the awareness, showing the results, so that coaching is becoming absolutely the standard feature in not-for-profit organizations' budgets for next, fiscal rounds or funding cycles. The work we've been doing with UNICEF and World Bank is actually paid work. So starting and we also are doing quite a lot of research. Fortunately now, doing all this initiatives, we have good look into the systemic impact of what coaching is providing to those organizations and individuals, and they are very, very promising. So we are collecting this data, analyzing this data, creating strong ROI and ROE case studies of the effectiveness of coaching in not-for-profit sector, again, with the end result in mind, and that being that not-for-profit organizations will become as used and as familiar with coaching as the for-profit organizations are, and again, make sure that they are writing the line items for within their budgets for coaching. And speaking of budgets, I also want to touch very briefly on the study we've done last year with Human Capital Institute, and it was about coaching being a support mechanism for sustainable change management initiatives. What we know from that study, and you can find it on our website, coachfederation.org, is that many, just about every organization is reporting that they are going through some kind of a change initiative. Majority of these initiatives will not be successful. And the three factors that are absolutely crucial for the success or the failure of the change initiative is communication, leadership, and access to information, which also translates into resilience. Now, we do know that coaching is one of the best mechanisms to grow leadership skills and also to help with resilience. So, and so many organizations use coaching for improvement in communication. So that's another factor that is strongly supported by coaching. We asked the question of the respondents to that particular study of what kind of mechanisms are being offered as a support to the change initiatives. And there is a fairly lengthy list of initiatives, from classroom training to just pure managerial support, including working with manager and leader using coaching skills or the internal external coach. When we asked the organizations what methodology, what methods are being used the most, you would probably not be surprised to see that the most traditional ones, including classroom learning, were on the top of the list. So we asked the follow-up question with, what do you think is the most effective? And I'm sure you're not going to be surprised that it's almost flipping that table on its head. And the mechanism being used the least, that being coaching, managers, leaders using coaching skills, group coaching, team coaching, that shows up at the very top of the effectiveness. So not-for-profit organizations, as I said, some of them are large systems and large organizations. They are, by their own definition, supporting change. And therefore, the use of coaching to support and sustain that change is even more of a powerful offer than it may seem at the face value.
Okay, thanks, Magda. I'm not very sure whether the way that I interpreted that question about pro bono was whether even if the organization does not pay any money and it's being given as a service, that ICF would consider that equivalent to paid hours as far as credentialing and stuff is concerned. So I'm not quite sure. But in case you want to pick that up to answer that may be a possibility.
Yes, that's very true. That for the credential at every level, we actually invite certain percentage of the hours being pro bono. They are treated, as Ram said, they are treated the same as the paid hours. And you know, there is something very interesting also about the term pro bono. In the United States in particular, pro bono is often defined or interpreted as for free. In fact, it is not. Pro bono means for greater good. So it is entirely possible that it could be a discounted price. It could be an exchange of value without monetary exchange. And we also know from studies on something unrelated to coaching that human nature suggests that if something is for free without any personal commitment from an individual, people tend to value it less. So we did have several projects where the fee was extremely low. $10, $5 per coaching engagement, but that created that emotional link and emotional attachment that resulted in much greater uptake of the coaching hours. But so let's remember these two things. One, that pro bono coaching up to 10% for PCC and MCC and up to 25% for ACC. Pro bono hours are very much welcome for the application of the credential. And then that definition, pro bono means for greater good. It does not necessarily mean.
Yeah, absolutely right, Magda. I mean, having worked in this space for a very long time, charity by itself, I found never works, and it's taken for granted. Yeah, how people can afford to pay, can they pay in some way, pay forward, and many other things can be really looked at. Sally has a question, and there are a few others in that realm as well, in terms of how to work with the nonprofit sector, pro bono, as you put it, for the larger good. What advice would you give to ICF coaches, those who are keen to work with the realm of the nonprofit sector? Are there any particular routes that you would recommend? Personally, we would like to do that in Africa.
Yes, you know that there is a difference between working with for-profit organizations and not-for-profit organizations. Many of the not-for-profit organizations are what we call mission-driven. So the alignment of values and visions and missions is an absolute must. I know that we say coaching is coaching is coaching, but again, that alignment for mission-driven organizations is even more significant than it is for for-profit organizations. The other difference is that most not-for-profit organizations, although they do have paid staff, they also work with volunteers. And it is often because of the engagement of the volunteers that the work of the organization is being really delivered. Well, look at ICF. Yes, we have 57 staff members, but we have 36,000 fantastic volunteers who are doing a great job on behalf of ICF every day. So working with volunteers is different than working with the paid individuals, because again, that alignment on values and also their sensitivity, if you will, to what they do and how they do it, is different, and their commitment to process, as Ram said earlier, might be a little different as well. It is their voluntary time. What we find out is that typically the volunteers that work with coaches are phenomenally grateful for it and cannot stop talking about the benefits. But there is this initial work on really having very specific agreement, either with the organization that you're working with or with an individual that you're working with. There was an interesting study being done several years back about working in not-for-profit sector, and on our website, on the foundation's website, we do have some tips about how to approach a not-for-profit organization, and also how to be more familiar maybe with some specificities of working with volunteers, working for mission-driven organizations, and sometimes, you know, working in extremely emotional environment. So I would welcome you to go to our foundation's website and look into these tips. But for me personally, the alignment of values and vision or mission of the organization is something that opens a lot of doors, and something that that is very much welcome by the organization on the other side. I can't hear you, Ram. I'm sorry, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I muted myself. Yeah. There have been a couple of questions on ICF and role in education. And this brings me to a larger question. I remember you talking about in another forum on, you touched upon it earlier, moving from the individual to the larger societal ecosystemic or systemic coaching involving the entire organization or the ecosystem in this space as well. And some of it is being done with UN and similar organizations. Now, if we were to take it in the space of, for instance, education in a larger sense, or maybe health or climate change that you mentioned. If you want to involve a large number of people like Sally and others who are willing to get into this, are there other completely out of the box ways that you can think of? What is it that members can do on their own? In what way can they bring value to energy and inspiration to ICF, things like that?
Yes, so thank you first of all for Sally's enthusiasm for this kind of work. As I mentioned, the ICF Foundation for the Ignite project aligned itself with the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is education. And all 70 initiatives that are going on right now in the ICF system do point to education. What it means is that our chapters partner with the organizations that deliver services in the field of education. And it could be a school system. It could be working with the principal or certain teachers. It could be the organization, much like UNICEF, that is responsible for early education. It could be working with organizations that are helping influence curriculum development for organizations of educational in the educational or education sector. For individuals, I think that sky is the limit. I'm sure that there are organizations in your backyard. Many people, many coaches, when asked, how do we go from that individual to a system? The answer is start in your backyard. Because just frankly, everything is more sustainable if it's starting with grassroots and with that commitment at the local level. So, look around in your neighborhood. Is there an organization that is supporting educational goals? Is there a school system that is doing something like that? Is there a special group that is focusing on a specific kind of education? There is this very interesting study from McKinsey around Generation Z and how different they are from the boomers, from the Xers, and definitely from the millennials. And the very interesting part of that study points that two things which I found fascinating. One is that they do say already in the early age, I will change as an individual. Today, I can tell you that I am very, for me, what is important is X, Y, Z, but I do know that in several years it may change. So don't define me for life in this part of my life cycle. And the other one was that they are much more communal in their approach. It's not about the individual, it's about the whole. It's about the society, it's about the community. They are more interested in finding solutions jointly than fixing the problems for individual gain. So there is some societal shift possibly going on that the younger generations are really more looking into the society and societal good and societal progress more so than focusing on individual gain and moving up, if you will, in individual's life and a career. So again, I think that in the localities that you happen to work, that may be something that you can look directly into the organization that is having some educational impact and work with them. Or if you're working with corporate clients, large and small, perhaps you can suggest that they do create some initiative that is supporting a goal of education. And there may be, very different ones. It could be, so one of my favorite stories, and not related to coaching, but there is, in the United States, there is the Coin Laundromat Association. Not very sexy, not very sexy. And they also have a foundation, and this foundation decided to support the field of education in a very interesting way. What they noticed was that typically first of all, laundromats are more times than not in the areas of cities that are not most affluent. They are typically less, affluent areas of the municipality, and typically who comes to laundromats are mothers with children or grandparents with children. Oftentimes they sit there and wait for their laundry to be made. So the Laundromat Foundation, they started creating little libraries in the laundromats. It started with just putting couple, 3 books. It expanded to them partnering with the manufacturers of bookcases. And they started putting custom-made bookcases in the laundromats. It extended to people, owners of laundromats or otherwise, coming for hour a day, hour a week, whatever they can do, and read to children, because they found out that many times the parents or grandparents, they do not read. So that became an absolutely phenomenal initiative for them, the initiative that is way more known than what the Laundromat Association is doing, but in a very unusual and out of the box way, the affording for kids to not only be taken out of streets and potential danger, but also being exposed to reading and the whole idea of reading and learning about the world in such a way is such an unusual and yet such a powerful way that they are supporting the field of education. I am sharing that story because, first of all, it's one of my favorite stories, and second, because it is very out of the box. It's not the direct application. With coaching, I think we always have that direct application of our skill and our talent. We can offer that gift of coaching to an individual or the institution, but there are also ways of igniting the thought of how education can be supported.
There were some questions on the links for the ICF Foundation. All that I have said is that it's already available on the ICF website, and it leads to the separate foundation sub-website as well. And unless there is some other information, as far as I know, that works, right?
Yes, you can go to coachfederation.org and scroll down on that first page to the list of hyperlinks on the bottom of the page, and ICF Foundation is hyperlinked there. Otherwise, it's www.foundationoficf.org.
Yeah, well, one of the things I noticed, Magda, from whatever I said, I remember that earlier when Janet was running the foundation, she addressed some of our sessions as well on foundation. There's, in a sense, while there is a lot of work that has been done, tremendous amount of work that has been done by ICF, not many people are aware of the extent of the scope of what is being done. In that context, I know your sort of passion and fascination for this larger institutional societal work. One of the things, I don't know how familiar you are with, and it's something which has been evolving in the last couple of years, Otto Scharmer's, the Theory U, the whole effort, the labs and so on and so forth. Now it's become a mass movement, for example. I mean, what started with 100,000 people probably now is reaching out to probably closer to 1 million people. In the current lab that he's running, it's about, I think there are 20, 30,000 people who have actually taken part. And what I was very intrigued to what I find was that the word coaching is so often used. They talked about creating hubs, they talk about creating coaching circles. And while they don't talk about it in terms of a competency, but very clearly the whole underlying essence of coaching is coming in some way, in terms of how do you use that for a larger societal transformation, what he calls as moving from the absencing to the presencing. So I'm sure there are other initiatives as well, which are not that well known. So are there, in some way, I know that not everything can be done at a purely organizational level, but could there be methodologies by means of which these can be somehow brought into the larger spectrum of the space that ICF is working on?
I think so. I think, as you said, not everything can be done at the organizational level, but also not everything can be done immediately. So this processes, this structures have to be built. I mentioned before that we have 70 Ignite initiatives. We are learning a lot from those initiatives of how to build a greater movement. We are also very intrigued with working with these large systems, you know, UNICEF, Special Olympics, places like that, where by the sheer engagement with them, the reach is just tremendous. Even through the 70 Ignite initiatives, we looked into the size of a population that those organizations that we are working with are working, and by just last year, last year and a half, the work of the foundation had a potential of reaching 4 million people. So this is, I think, where the societal progress is happening, with potentially finding the partners with the reach and the scope that affords for that ripple effect of what the work of individual coach can actually do for the larger organization. As I mentioned before, we have some pockets of our own members really starting much broader conversations about impact on climate, impact on energy. So I am sure that we're gonna also, as an organization, receive more and more requests of some more systematic and systemic support for some of these initiatives. Education is going on right now at the foundation level, but again, the foundation is working with the coaches of the ICF and the chapters of the ICF. I think it's very important what you said about term coaching being used and being used pretty freely. We are unrelenting in educating general public about professional coaching and what coaching is and what coaching is not, and what to expect from coaching. You know, several years back, there was a little danger, I think, that coaching was used for everything. It was a silver bullet. And that's not necessarily appropriate either. Coaching has the best impact in certain applications, while in other circumstances, different things may work better, that being a direct managerial support or learning, more traditional learning. So we not only were doing a lot to train, to educate the public about what coaching is, and also how to source a professional coach. As you know, ICF is very proud of being a standard setter in the coaching profession, with the extremely high rigor and commitment to ongoing improvement. So we certainly want to make sure that whoever is working with the professional coach on a pro bono basis or otherwise, that they are working with the person who is trained, evaluated, and definitely prepared to offer that service.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of the coaching, in terms of the professional approach, I think the way that Shama's Presencing Institute and several others are looking at it is more as a support system rather than in the professional sense that we use it in the ICF terminology. The way that I was looking at it really was from, you know, these are very parallel to the kind of stuff that we are talking about it now, what you are talking about in terms of the larger societal transformation, be it climate change, be it in terms of reaching out to those who cannot afford and stuff like that. So I know the foundation is already active in many ways, but if over and above whatever we are doing in Ignite or as part of it, I'm only concerned about the lack of awareness. I know that there's so much of it being done, but in spite of whatever we are promoting, it is still probably not reaching out ICF is still very much seen as probably the provider of that diploma, the degree, the certificate, the credential, that kind of a stuff. The larger impact of what is being done in coaching, what is possible to be done in coaching, like what you're talking about, which is why we wanted you to come and speak on this societal transformation bit. One of the things, this is a bit outside of what we are talking about, I recently came across maybe you're familiar with this acronym called WEIRD, W-E-I-R-D. It was a paper published in 2010, how 98% of all work that is being done, published, recognized, etc., in most fields, psychological, neurosciences, research, etc., they are all from Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic societies, and 70% of them are from the United States. Like, for example, when you initially said that 50% of the ICF membership or credentialed coaches is North America, which I'm sure of is fantastic when it started in order to provide the impetus. But today, which then it's just a fraction, very, very small fraction of the larger world, probably a quarter.
Oh, yeah.
So how do we, again, I'm probably being the question here. I think each one of us can do something about it, but in a larger systemic way, is there something that can be done which really takes an organization like ICF into the mainstream of the non-weird societies, as it were?
This is a very interesting question, and a question that frankly ICF members will have to wade in, because ICF as an organization exists to support our members. We are a membership organization. We are owned, if you will, by the members. So our primary focus is to make sure that our coaches are being well supported in their educational needs, in their needs for running the business, and also parallelly that we, as I mentioned, that we are setting standards for the professional coaching, and also that we are educating the public about coaching. The taking an advocacy position is a little different. I would say that in a way we are advocating for the profession of coaching, but taking it further, advocating for professional coaching to support societal good is an extension, and is an extension that already is definitely a value for the ICF Foundation, and it is a specific goal and the focus of the foundation. And I think that this is reaching a greater spectrum and scope because ICF members are keenly interested in having that societal impact. I think that by the work of the Ignite, we are trying to show, and this is still the program in its infancy, we're trying to show that systematic approach to applying coaching in social progress or in social sector does make sense. We did a literature review on the efficacy of coaching in not-for-profit. There is very little about it, very little. So in a way, the work that we're doing right now is providing, as I mentioned, us the data that we can turn into good research and good case studies to show effectiveness of coaching in social progress. So I think we're inching, we're taking small steps, but I think that because of the urgency of societal needs these days, we're gonna get greater urge for, if nothing else, much broader conversation, much like you suggested, about coaching being the means for seeing progress for society, and especially this most urgent issues that we are dealing with on a daily basis right now. You know, I'm sitting in Lexington, Kentucky. It's October 1st, and the temperature is at 35 centigrades, which is not normal. So, so yeah, we have some things to do. I think, you know, some of my colleagues in the office and in the leadership will tell you that what I've been saying for a long time is like, I want us to be at Davos. I want us to sit at the big table. I want us not to be thought about as, oh, nice to have, I must have. and partly because of a difference we can make in the long term.
Yeah, one way I would sort of take what you said in a slightly different direction is, at the end of the day, yes, we have to define what coaching is, what the framework is. Now, in terms of the application, there are literally infinite possibilities in terms of how this can be used and whatever sectors it can be used. Like, for example, when I met Otto Sharma's presenting how that is being used. One of the things that when I work with leadership teams, the simple way of putting it across to them about coaching is that there's absolutely no difference between the competencies in coaching and the leadership competencies. There has to be a very clear outcome definition. There's a movement towards action. There has to be an awareness that is created. There is communication, building relationships, and all this kind of stuff. For instance, design thinking. There is IDEO and various organizations in Stanford, and the basic infrastructure they use is exactly similar to what we use in coaching as well. So some of these things, when we can create an amalgam, as it were, between these and others in terms of expanding that, and something like what you are talking about in terms of a larger ecosystemic shift, transformation that can happen. I think as a whole, the coaching community can contribute a lot more than what we are doing in terms of the multiplier effect, the scaling effect on a global scale. Yeah, let's see how that goes. So there aren't any more major questions. So whatever that you have else to in terms of your flow of consciousness in the next about 10-15 minutes, please go on.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate the invitation to be on this call today, and the topic that you suggested, Ram, because yes, it is great passion of mine, but also I have to say I think that we will see a greater uptake of coaching in that societal context. And you know, the invitation is being made to each and every coach that is member of ICF or otherwise, and the invitation is also very much on the table for training organizations like yourself, because this is where the consciousness, if you will, of a coach is being formed in a way. So bringing to the attention and awareness of the individuals who want to become professional coaches, that what they do may have very significant impact, positive impact on societal issues is important. We start seeing, you know, the traditional educational systems moving to that early formation of consciousness. So, and I would agree wholeheartedly with you that the traits of a modern leader are very much similar to the traits of the coach. The style of management that is being demanded anymore is very much aligned with the coaching style. And at the same time, I think that you also are right saying that there are different disciplines coming together that, for lack of better term, I call human development. Coaching is one of it. You know, mindfulness may be the other. Change management theory, neuroscience, all that is really emerging into what is creating that new way of humans being and humans interacting with one another. And yes, we still have about 49% of our membership in North America, and yet we are growing very fast in other parts of the world, which also comes with a different consciousness, where it comes with a greater attention to communal good and communal involvement, if you will. I just came back from Nairobi, Kenya, where we had fantastic conversations about some very amazing projects happening to better up the entire communities and entire sectors. And I think that the fact that we are seeing this corporate responsibility programs in corporations and more coaching supporting those, that I think will be one of the fastest accelerator for the use of coaching in social progress, because there is in many cases, there is a very significant resource behind those initiatives. And we on our part, doing Ignite initiatives, but our commitment is to really promote the outcomes of those initiatives in a larger scale, and also knocking on the door of the large organizations, like large donor organization that in turn can support use of coaching in some applications for populations that otherwise may not have access to it, and that the coaches can be also compensated for it. Because thriving society means every single person, living in a better place, but also being able to live the life that they want to live. So part of the mandate for the ICF, as we see it, is also to make sure that coaching is a viable profession, and the coaching is a choice that people can make for their career, and be, satisfactorily compensated for that. So I think that this is a multi-pronged approach to how we make sure that coaching is known, is understood for what it is, and is also, delivered according to the standards that are recognized in a larger scope. I am very excited about ICF's position on ethics, and the fact that we have, of course, the ethical conduct review process that is could be utilized if the client is not completely happy with the ethical conduct of a coach. That's very powerful, and more of our coaches are actually sharing this fact and the code of ethics with their respective clients. And again, that call for consciousness and awareness of the impact of the work of a coach and their clients is something that is opening a bigger conversation, and a conversation that I think will continue, and I think it's extremely useful to the society, but also to how coaches are showing up in the marketplace, and how ICF is being perceived as an organization.
Yeah, thanks really, Magda. It's been wonderful. I've just unmuted Fiona. I thought I wasn't sure that she was muted all this while. I would like to ask her to make some. But what I was really impressed was the word that you used about choice and consciousness. I mean, these are not words that one commonly hears when we are talking this forum. We talk a lot about awareness, fine. But I think when we talk about consciousness, we completely switch to another level of what I might call global, if that is what it is, area which is my passion anyway. But let me stop there. So I'll invite, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you, sharing your perspectives, and I wish we have more occasions for that to happen. Fiona, for you, a few words, and then Magda, you can close. Thank you. Magda.
Thank you so much, Magda, for a lovely session. I've learned so much from you today. I'm sorry you can't see me because I'm waving at you.
I'm waving back there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I just thought, my head's so full of ideas, so bless you for that. Always love to get the little grey cells moving. And also to say, actually, it's making me think about our social role as commentators on absolutely anything that we choose to do so and are passionate about. So thank you so much for your inspiration.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you so much. You can tell that I'm getting warmed up as I talk about it, because I think it's really, really important, and something that we can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Absolutely. Magda? You're muted.
Magda is muted.
Okay, I'll have to unmute. Okay, right. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, everyone, for all the technical difficulties today, but that's what happens on the first day of a month-long session. But yes, this was really interesting. And yes, we can do it. We are doing it with people like Magda, like Ram, like Fiona, like all of you guys in attendance. We for sure can make a difference, and we are making a difference. And wherever Coacharya can assist, we welcome the feedback and the suggestions, because again, we can't do it alone. We have to do this together. But we did get started with some things. So a few of you may have seen in the Q&A, I posted a link to forum.coacharya.com. That's our very new forum that we've launched for discussions like this, so we can continue talking and continue connecting and sharing ideas. So the forum is open to the public. Please, after this session, log on. There's a bunch of topics already started there around the kinds of things that were coming up in this session, around education and coaching, around pro bono, sharing ideas of what we can do together. So please log on, and I will ask the Magdas will connect later so we can get all the different links and things mentioned in this session, and I will post those in the forum as well, so you won't have missed anything. And we'll make this recording available as a podcast as well as a video later in the month, so that you can catch up and listen again. And then one more thing, there's also another service that we've literally just launched. So when you go in there, there's not much there yet, but that's why I'm mentioning it now. If you go to marketplace.coacharya.com, we've created a place where coaches who want to offer pro bono or peer coaching, where you can post your profile, and let's build up a few of those profiles. And as soon as we have, a critical mass of that, through Coacharya, we have, and through, through ICF, through other partners, we have so many different opportunities to connect with NGOs and nonprofits and others who can't afford to pay a professional coach, but could very much benefit for their organization and for the planet. So if you could also please check out marketplace.coacharya.com, register for with your profile. We will definitely spread this far and wide, and hopefully get some momentum going where all of us can make an impact together. So that's my spiel. I look forward to interacting with all of you on all those different places. Thank you so much, Magda, for your time this morning. It was
Pleasure.
Inspirational and informative and very, very exciting.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, tomorrow, I promise to all of you who are attending, we will have chat, and we will have nobody kicked out, etc. It happens. I'm sorry. It's life. But we will see you guys here tomorrow for a session with Fiona.
Magda, any password or anything, or is it automatically?
No password. I will email everybody. So because there's so many sessions, and ICF has granted us different CCEUs for different sessions, it's just going to get too complicated to use individually. So anybody who's claiming CCEUs, please log on to forum.coacharya.com, and the session name for today is pinned to the top. Comment with your feedback so we know you were here. And then when this entire month is over, there'll be a very simple certificate claim process where we will validate who attended what, and you will get your certificate. So that will happen, just not today.
Brilliant. Michael, any last words?
Yes, I just spent 2 hours with Peter Hawkins here in Montreal last night, and this fits totally into what he's talking about. This need to take the movement from IQ to what he calls WeQ, which involves the entire systemic environment beyond the obvious, beyond the company, beyond the corporate culture, and to include everything. So very rich in learning.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, Peter Hawkins will be speaking at this forum on the 28th of October. So please attend that session. Again, open to the public. And Michael will be speaking this coming Friday on a panel on religion, various religions, and coaching. So you can see more of him then.
And is it Fiona tomorrow?
Fiona tomorrow. Thursday, I'll be leading a panel on applications of coaching in daily life and self-coaching. I'm someone who's going to BCC training right now, and all of us who are in that program, we're finding that there's, yes, of course, coaching others is wonderful, but we're finding so much personal growth, and we're seeing applications of coaching in so many areas that we thought this was one way that we can share coaching far and wide and democratize it, so to speak. So the session on Thursday with me will be focused on those daily applications of coaching. And then yes, Michael and 4 others on Friday on religion.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thanks, Magda. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
Both
Magda,
Magda.
Ram, again, Fiona,
So
Michael.
weird, Magda.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you at the
Thank
forum.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah.